Well, today we are absolutely honored, blessed, excited to have with us a true freedom fighter, a man of the people, a man with a heart for the country, Senator Malcolm Roberts. And he asked me beforehand if he could sip coffee while he was doing the interview. I said, go for it because he's going to need it this week. How are you, Senator?
I'm well, thank you, Pat. Always happy to see you, be on your
Listen,
show because you're always smiling and you're so positive. It's wonderful.
well, no, you should have heard me this morning. I took down my post this morning that I had because I decided to have a go at Adolf Bant. Sorry, Adam Bant. I call him Adolf,
I think
but
you're right the first time, weren't you?
yeah, I think so. I just why are the young? Why is young Australia committed to a communist? Just because he goes and turns.
Yes, yes, they have been.
Yeah, that's all I
Uh,
want to hear. Today, Senator, and this will make everyone out there laugh.
no,
Well, yesterday,
excuse me. I better tell the truth beyond the
yeah.
joke. There are some marvelous young people at unis today, and one of the things
Mm,
that's really surprising me, Pat, and it's delighting me, is that so many young people are talking about free enterprise and giving people freedom of choice. They
mm.
understand
Uh,
that that's where accountability comes from, and and enterprise leads to innovation. So they're Ayn Rand, Adam Smith making a resurgence in school in universities, which is wonderful.
it's interesting. I put up a post, the Senator. I think you'll find this amusing. I put up a post and it was a copy of your post actually. When that Indigenous activist said, if we don't get the voice, you don't get a welcome to country. And I said she lied
You
again.
beauty.
Well, guess what? I got called a racist and ungodly. Have a look at my skin. The left is just plain stupid and then ungodly. What's so godly about welcome to country? They're conjuring up demon spirits, elders past, present. They're speaking of the dead. But let me ask you about this. How sick and tired are Australians being welcomed to their own country, particularly as they did on Anzac Day? What is that about?
Well, Anzac Day was particularly bad, Pat, because Australians themselves are sick of being welcomed back to their own country. It's our
Hmm.
country. We don't need to be welcomed back to it. We don't need to be welcomed back to our country when we go just a few kilometers down the road to attend a
Hmm.
conference. One of the most stupid things I've heard was I was at a conference in Mackay, right, and
Hmm.
a bureaucrat from Canberra was speaking by Zoom, and she gave a welcome to country for all the tribes named all the tribes in Mackay, and then said, "Oh, I'm going to do one for Canberra as well." So we got two doses. I mean,
You got double this.
it's absolute nonsense, but it's really humiliating and
Hmm.
degrading and dividing, especially for the diggers who fought for our country and lost mates. It's a particularly sensitive period to tell them they are being welcomed to someone else's country. Not on, mate. Not on. We've got to stop this. And One Nation policy is to stop it.
Absolutely. Senator, Donald Trump got elected on a mandate by the American people. To me, it seems that Albert Sleazy, who to me, as you've heard me have private conversations with you, I believe he's a communist. I believe he's got a communist with lipstick. He doesn't have a mandate. He's got a mandate from a whole bunch of factions and activists in his own party that he owns. And then you've got Peter Dutton, who's about as exciting as watching wallpaper dry. And I prefer Dutton, obviously, and I know One Nation's given their preferences to Dutton. Well,
Well,
that's
we don't give preferences. We make
option.
suggestions on what people do because people own the
Yeah,
preferences. Really
yeah,
important for people to understand it. They make the choice. So
that's
we've
good.
recommended Dutton on the basis that he's the lesser of two evils.
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely less of two evils. What is the mandate from the Australian people as you see it for One Nation? Because these two don't look like they've got a mandate, they've got agendas.
um, well, we've been very encouraged wherever we've gone, Pat. We've had a really strong reception.
Mm,
We haven't been called racist. One woman in Sydney, sorry, in where was that? Maroochydore called us a racist. But those days are finished. People are honestly looking to us as a viable alternative. And we're
mm,
not the third alternative, we're the second alternative because there's the Uni Party on one hand and there's One Nation on the other. The Uni-Party, Liberal and Labor policies are almost identical. And I had a journalist today, pretty sensible journalist. He said, "Come on, like their policies aren't so similar." I said, "Well, let's have a look at them. Nuclear is just a cosmetic lipstick on a pig, if you like, because they're desperate to show that they're different. But you have a look at energy. They're both supporting wind and solar wind turbines and solar panels. They're both supporting massive industrial scale of that, which every country in which that's been done has raised prices. They're both putting high targets on that, so they're similar there. Immigration is catastrophically high at the moment. They're similar there. They both make vague statements about lowering immigration when they've got no real intent to do so. They've both got similar housing problems, housing policies, which is to put young people in debt. Young nation is the only, really, we are a young nation as well. Young nation, one nation, call us what you want.
I like both.
We're forming a young nation band within our party, but Young Nation is now appealing to young people in this country because the policies are so resonating. So what in particular, Pat, our policies are holistic and they're integrated. They're a combination. They're compounding on each other's. We're not making wild promises, unsubstantiated, just to buy people's votes. What Labor and Liberal are doing, it's really denigrating for the people of Australia to watch these two people. They're behaving like clowns, just making wild promises. No substantial data. All of our policies are costed, and they're basically putting $40 billion worth of money that's being wasted back into people's pockets. So we have got the solid ground now, and people can see that. And we've had a rise in support. The polls are really reflecting it, and they're independent polls that are doing that. So we're looking forward to the election.
What's your gut feeling about the election? What is your gut telling you? I know what the polls are saying. Do you think Australia's had enough of Labor, or are they a bit like, Macaulay Culkin, when he looked at those criminals after beating them up on Christmas Day in Home Alone, he goes, "Are you guys had enough? Or are you ready for more?" I mean, is Australia? I think the way I look at it, I go, surely Australia couldn't want another 3 years of a communist with lipstick like Albo and Penny Wong. Listen to me, folks. Penny Wong, Albo, Miles, Giles.
Oh, hang on. What about Bowen?
And sorry, I
The
forgot about him.
clown.
And the worst idiot. They've kept him in quarantine. I mean, I think he's vacationing over here in Bali at the moment. And Chris Bowen, lights out Bowen. Surely we couldn't have more of that.
Well,
And what's your gut feeling?
that's how politics has been degraded in this country, Pat. The Labor has got quite a good chance of getting back. It would be horrific, but that's the reality, I think. Dutton's been embarrassed by a couple of gaffes. Albanese's made a number of lies, and that's the circus that we see. I said this about 6 months ago. You watch 3 months out from the election, you'll have Albanese, Dutton, Albanese, Dutton, Albanese, Dutton, Labor, Liberal, Labor, Liberal, Labor, Liberal. They're the only choice, and that's the media playing the game, because the media gets hundreds of millions of dollars of advertising from the government. They depend upon the government. So they play to the government, whoever's going to be in, Labor or Liberal. So they leave everyone else out. The leaders' debates, they're not leaders. These people aren't leaders.
No, they're not.
But what about Pauline Hanson? She's got about 10% of the polls now. That's a significant share and a significant clout. She deserves to be on the leaders' stage.
100%. Senator, I want to encourage you, all of my viewers, listen to me. Don't be voyeurs sitting here commenting on social media. That's not going to change the nation. Pauline needs your support. You need to turn up at the polling booths, go and register, go and help. Just give an hour of your time. I was out there the other day. Come on, give an hour or so of your time. Don't sit there like a voyeur watching, don't sit watching the ship get, drift away. Let's get involved. Tell us some of the policies that make One Nation a party with a mandate for Australia.
Well, Pat, I'll read from the list because there are so many of them. First of all, their policies, as I said, are on 4 connected platforms. One is putting $40 billion of your money, it's your money, Pat, back in your pocket every year. Let me ask you a question. How much money does the government have?
They don't. It's
Thank
our
you. That's
money
it.
or borrowed money.
That's it. It's taxpayer money. So we want to put $40 billion worth of your money back in your pockets to stop the bureaucrats from wasting it. We've identified, say, $90 billion worth of savings due to federal waste and duplication. So, and these are all fully costed, unlike Labor and Liberal parties, fully
Mm,
costed. So, putting money back in your pockets, I'll read from the list. Income splitting via joint tax return filing for families with a dependent child, putting $9,500 a year back into the pockets of families of breadwinners on the average income. Right there, that's a sensible pro-family policy.
mm,
Next one, halving petrol and diesel excise tax, cutting fuel prices 26 cents a litre. This was introduced by Pauline to Morrison. Morrison took it on for 12 months during the COVID. We introduced it again back in January, and Dutton copied it the following month. So,
yep.
sorry, he copied it 2 months later. The next thing is cutting electricity bills 20% immediately. And in 3 years, reductions of 50% thanks to new coal-fired power stations. They're the first three on our list. Now, if you think about cutting the
Pretty
petrol
big.
and diesel and the electricity, their input costs directly or indirectly to every business in this country because everyone relies on transport. So
Mm,
when you cut fuel and electricity prices, it reduces every business's input costs, which leads to higher productivity, lower inflation, cutting the CPI, lowering interest rates, reducing house loan payments, and reducing grocery and food prices. So,
mm.
and then we'd also abolish alcohol excise tax on beer and spirits served in hospitality venues. Now, that's not just to get people drunk, because right now we want to stop people getting smashed. And so we want people to be served alcohol in responsible hospitality venues, pubs, clubs, and restaurants, which are
Mm.
dying because the alcohol tax is so damn high, people can't afford to have a drink with their friends.
Correct.
You know, you go to regional communities, Pat, the pub is the center of the community events there. So we want, what's happening, sadly, is that young people in particular are getting tanked up, driving, getting onto drugs, high on drugs, driving
Mm.
and going to the pub and just sitting on a beer all night, you know.
Yeah.
And what we've got to do is restore the hospitality industry, the community events. So there are other
Mm.
policies, which I can go into if you want, but let's let's
Well,
let's go.
the two that I see a big waste of money is the indigenous industry, and that does not mean, and no one who trolls out there, you morons, don't go saying, "Oh, Mercedes racist doesn't want to look after indigenous." I believe that those that need to be looked after should be looked after, but there's a lot of waste. I'm sure there's a lot of waste there, and also the climate cult, that ridiculous notion. How much money is wasted every year of our taxpayer dollars for those two, and what would one can do to get rid, or at least monitor, means test, whatever, those two industries?
Okay, I'll go into them next, and that's where I was going when you spoke about
Oh,
the
sorry. Oh,
Aboriginal industry. No, that's fine. We're the only ones talking about spending reform. The other parties, including the minor parties, and by the way, both the major parties and three of the minor parties have adopted some of our policies, either in part or
mm,
pretended to adopt them, because our policies are resonating with the people. So, what we're the only ones talking about reducing spending, saving money will eliminate $90 billion of waste and duplication. So, first one,
wow.
we will shut the Department of Climate Change and Energy and related agencies, departments, programs, schemes, regulations, rules. That'll save more than $30 billion in waste. Plus, Pat, it will increase economic efficiency right throughout the country because every industry, because these parasites who are in the Department of Climate Change and Energy and living off the schemes and regulations, etc., they're interfering with the efficiency of our country. Plus, it will save
Yep.
taxpayers $3 billion on the government's electricity bill. Plus, we
Mm,
will end UN net zero. We will withdraw from the UN
mm,
Paris Agreement. So then the next one
mm,
is eliminating federal departments that are duplicating state responsibilities. We need to shrink our government to fit the Constitution. The Constitution says most of the services should be done by the states. Now, you raised the
mm.
Aboriginal industry, and I'm pleased you used the word Aboriginal industry. And by the way, it's a white and black Aboriginal industry. Lawyers, consultants,
Correct.
activists, academics, bureaucrats, parasites in the middle. Now, this is being done for two reasons. First reason, the
Mm,
current system of having parasites getting in the way of between the taxpayers and the Aboriginal communities is hurting Aboriginals. Child molestation, child
mm.
sex, child abuse, hurting of domestic violence is killing Aboriginals, and it needs to stop. This
Yep.
has clearly failed because the Aboriginals are not getting autonomy. They're being ruled not by whiteys, they're being ruled by white and black Aboriginal industry. And so they're being neglected. So what we'd say is get rid of all the parasites. We'll save at least $15 billion and then replace them with direct community grants and real jobs for real care. That's where you see, Pat, you know that responsibility and accountability is fundamental. So if you give money directly to the communities and one community wastes
100%.
it and the other community to uses it wisely, then in 5 years' time, we know that the second one will be far better off. And the first one will look at the second one and say, what happened? Well, they spent their money wisely. They allocated it sensibly and honestly, and that's what we need. So they're just two of the areas. We'll also abolish the federal education department and housing departments because we've got state duplication. The state the responsibilities under the Constitution. We'll abolish the TGA. Withdraw from the United Nations and the United Nations World Health Organization. When it comes to housing,
Praise the Lord.
and when it comes to housing, we're the only ones with a coherent policy that works on demand, supply, building prices, and inflation to reduce mortgage payments and rents. Firstly, Pat, it's starting to become known. We've been bashing this for about 4 years, that the cause of the homeless crisis, and it is an absolute catastrophe, is rampant immigration. So we will start off by deporting 75,000 illegals, 75,000. We will stop mass immigration. Each year when 220,000 people leave, we'll only allow 130,000 skilled people to enter. So we will have net negative migration. We will reduce foreign students and cut their Ponzi scheme. As many as half of the students, foreign students at some universities, are actually here for work. It's a Ponzi scheme. They're sending home $10 to $11 billion a year to their relatives back home. We will ban foreign ownership of real estate and farms. Then that's extremely important. That'll free up the supply of houses. So what we're doing with immigration is reducing the demand. So that'll put a damper on prices.
There seems to be a clear mandate from One Nation that it's not something you're plucking out of the air. And this is why, folks, I want to encourage you, listen to me. You need to share this. Listen, the news media out there, mainstream media, including, I was going to say something I probably shouldn't say, but they want, they've paid millions of dollars. Platforms like this is where, Malcolm, where the people movement starts. This is where we need to start a reformation in politics that is so needed in our country. Senator, I'm going to, because I know your time's busy and I know you'll be sculling coffee all night this week, I'm going to give you one word or one name, and then I want you to say the first thing that comes into your head. Can we play this game?
Yeah, sure. I'm up for any games with Pat.
Senator, are you there?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Ready? All right, here we go. All right. All right. Monica Ryan.
Monica Ryan.
Are you there, Senator?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, Pat? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Let me just move in. There's a bit of instability here. Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Let me just keep going because
I've
there's a bit of instability here, and why it's doing that. But yeah, well, I'm come back inside. I'll come back here. All right, here we go. Monica Ryan.
Is it Monique Ryan, the teal? You mean?
Monique Ryan. Yeah, Monique Ryan, the teal. Okay.
Monique
First
Ryan.
thing comes into your mind?
First thing that comes into my mind is conflict of interest. She gets money from Climate 200, which gets money from Simon Holmes à Court, which and she's basically working to increase solar and wind so that Simon Holmes à Court gets more money from subsidies.
All right. First thing comes into my mind when I hear her name is deceitful. Here we go. Chris Bowen.
Clown.
Idiot.
Dishonest clown. Who's hurting Australia catastrophically.
Totally. All right. Here's another one. Greens.
Anti-human. Their policies are deliberately and consciously anti-human, Pat. They're the most destructive force in Australian politics.
Absolutely. Antichrist, Antichrist, anti-Jewish. All right, here's another one for you. Here we go. Albo Sleazy.
Liar. And I think camouflage, a chameleon. There's no substance to the man, but he's very, very clever.
Yeah, first thing comes into my mind is self-serving. All right, here we go. Peter Dutton. I'm just pulling these out of my head right
Yeah,
now.
no.
So, Peter,
I actually feel sorry for Peter Dutton because he's head of a party. He's been put in a very difficult position because so
mm,
many of the Liberals are woke, some of the Liberals are sensible, and
yeah,
they're torn. And he's got to pander to both sides. And when you pander to two sides, mate, one of them is not what you believe in, not your core principles. And Peter Dutton either has to pull that mob together or
yeah.
get out.
He's chasing two rabbits. You chase two rabbits, you catch none. All right, here we go. Pauline Hanson.
Honesty, integrity, courage. She's absolutely amazing to work with. She lets me get on with my job. You know, I've told this story a few times, so correct, pull me up if I've told it to you before. But she walked into my office. We're not far apart in the Parliament House. And she walked in about 4 times into my office, and twice it was to say, "Love what you did on that one. Good on you. Keep going." Twice she walked in and said, "Malcolm, the path you're on has got some alligators. Be careful. Now you keep going if you want." And she's got very good political experience and intuition. She said, "You can keep going if you want, because she won't pull you up. She just lets you get on with it. So long as you have the data, which that
Yeah.
makes her very similar to me, and so long as you do what's in the national interest." She's a gem, mate. She's got guts.
The first thing comes into my mind is loves the nation. That's what comes
Oh,
into my
yep.
mind when I Pauline. All right, we'll do a few more, and then we'll let you go. All right, here we go. I've gone through. All right, here we go. Teals.
Teals were same as Monique Ryan.
Mm.
Basically, I think they're frauds. I think they've got a massive conflict of interest. They're there under pretense. They get their money indirectly from Simon Holmes Court, and their job is to get him more subsidies. That's the way I see it.
Who, by the way, in today's papers, he's doing some sort of last minute ditch to try and get $1 million. What happened there?
I didn't
What?
see that. I didn't. I don't
Yeah,
read the papers very much, but
yeah.
one of the Teal candidates was it trying to get $1 million?
Yeah, Monique's got a bit of a fundraiser thing going on as well. She's struggling. Senator, you've got we firstly I want to say thank you for not giving up the fight and for always coming across with such great hope for our nation. And I'll leave you with some final words. If Dunton wins, what do you want to say to the Australian people? If Albo Sleazy wins, what's your word to the Australian people?
If Dutton wins, we'll work with him. If Albanese wins, we'll work with him. We work with anyone, but we put our foot down when they come up with something unreasonable or against the national interest or it's dishonest. We've done that a
Yep.
number of times. We will continue to do that. We don't take sides. We look at each issue on its merits. The last thing I'd say is, since in the last 30 years, the last 3 decades, the two-party preferred vote, the Liberal Labor vote has gone from 95% to 66%. And people are waking up, Pat. And what we need
Yeah.
is people to wake up faster and more of them to vote One
Mm.
Nation. In the Senate in Queensland, go to column Q, put a 1 in it above the line, and then put
Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as you wish.
Senator, one more thing comes to mind. I'm sorry for prolonging this. There are some idiots out there, and I call them idiots. I call them buffoons. I call them, well, there's a lot of the things I want to call them, but my Christian friends might send me a few letters. You got these morons out there saying, "Oh, don't vote, boycott the ballot." What do you say to foolish, irresponsible citizens peddling this absolute garbage and nonsense not to vote because the vote's already decided? I mean, that's like telling me, that's like telling me if China comes and invades us, don't take up arms. I mean, what's the use? They're going to wipe the floor with us. I mean, how imbecilic is that? Can you address that and how bad that is for our country?
It's very simple. I just say to them, why do you want to perpetuate Liberal and Labor? Because that's what you're doing. If you don't vote, you just make it easier for Liberal and Labor to win. The second thing is, do you like Liberal and Labor? And they go, hell no. And I said, well, why are you making it easy for them? Not voting makes it easier for the Liberal and Labor Party to maintain their rule. They're playing tag team, mate. They tag each other and they go in and out for a couple of terms. And that's all they're doing now. Their policies are almost identical. You have a look at them. They're almost identical.
I say to some friends of mine the other night at dinner, I said, I'm wondering if Dutton's trying to lose this. He gets paid anyway. So, but the one thing I know about One Nation, you and Pauline, is you're in it for the Australian people. Senator Malcolm, thanks so much for being on the program. It's always a great joy to see you. And You
Same
wore
here,
your
Pat.
coat, I wore my polo today.
Enjoy Bali, and thank you very much.
Thanks. Hey, folks, get out there and vote and stay tuned. I've got a very special announcement to make. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. We've got a very special announcement to make, and you need to listen to this. It's going to help you guys in a very great financial way. I've said it over and over and over again, and it's almost like a broken record, even though we don't have records these days. No one is sending out a rescue ship to help us financially. We have to take matters in our own hands. And over the last 4 or 5 years, we have a track record of helping people find financial freedom. This time around, I'm offering you a chance to win $100,000. The consolation prize alone is worth literally in the 20s and 30 thousands of dollars. It has to be someone that wins. Why can't that someone be you? But here's the even better thing. You're going to learn strategies, tried and proven strategies. It's a skill set that will never be taken from you. It's a skill set that your children can learn. They can't unlearn what you've already learned. Click on that link. Click on that link. $27. Many of us are looking for handouts, and that's why we are falling into government control. That's why this country is in the grip of the stronghold of communism. And I'm telling you right now, it's almost like Peter Dutton wants to lose this election. I don't know what is going on. Well, actually, I do. But I want you to heed the warning and take the blessing. The reason why we're able to do this is because we've been blessed and we want to be a blessing. Your chance to win $100,000 and a massive consolation prize. And guess what? The ticket sales, it's all going to charity to help children that are being left abandoned on rubbish dumps. This is a moment. Now, I shouldn't have to be begging and pushing, but sadly, some of us are so stuck in a mentality. Many of you go, well, I won't win it. Well, how do you know? How do you know? Can you foretell the future? I never thought I'd be here sharing this and being able to do this. It's amazing what happens when you come with a spirit of expectation. But on top of that, you're going to learn from the people that helped me build incredible wealth and that of my clients. And as well as that, you're going to help some people. So I'm going to ask you to click on that link. It's $27. That's like not even $1 a day. And I know this can bless your life and help us to help a lot of kids in need. I look forward to seeing you at Multiple Streams of Income, the Money Shield, and I look forward to seeing these learnings be an incredible blessing.